Welcome to the Cameo Renee podcast. This is a place for those who refuse to sit back and wait for life to unfold. If you're ready to break free from the slow lane and seize every opportunity, you're in the right place. We're all about taking action, making shit happen, and creating the life you desire. Join me as we dive into powerful conversations and strategies that will help you grow your mindset and chase your dreams. Welcome, everyone, to the Cameo Renee podcast. I am Cameo Renee, and I'm re-recording my first podcast today. So I recorded for the first time a couple weeks ago, and it was interesting, to say the least. My energy was all over the place. I was so nervous, and I feel like sitting in a space with like all the cameras and the lights on you is super scary, especially doing it the first time. So we're going to do a do-over, and I'll keep that stashed somewhere really, really safe. And one day we can reflect on it, but we're going to redo it today. So again, I'm Cameo Renee, and this is my new podcast. I'm so excited to have you guys here with me. And I just really want to share everything that I have been through, everything that I've learned, everything that I know, so I can pass it on to you. And hopefully you can utilize, something, if not everything that we speak about here, and take it on your journey. I am an entrepreneur at heart, and what I want for this podcast is for all the entrepreneurs everywhere to be their best. I just want everyone to know they're not alone when they feel alone, because we all know that this life of entrepreneurship can be so difficult and lonely. So let's normalize that. And we're just going to form a community that we don't have to feel that way anymore. So who am I? I am a mom. I'm a wife. Again, I'm an entrepreneur. Right now I have 3 businesses, and now I'm a podcast host. So to say the least, my life is busy. I love it though. I truly, truly love it. And as soon as I was able to get past the hard part in the first, I want to say 3 years, which was just coming from a space where I had no idea what I was doing to where I'm at now, and I'm able to guide people in that part of their life so they can also get through it and move past it to be successful in where they want to be. So with that being said, I want to talk about leadership for a little bit. Leadership is probably the most important part of being an entrepreneur. Why I say that is because when you have a business, most of the time you're going to have a team. And let's be real, when you start thinking about the bigger businesses like Walmart or ShopRite or Target, we don't really think about the best work environments. So one of my goals is putting this podcast out so people can learn to be better leaders for the people who are in the workforce, and we're not so stressed. I feel like we live in a time right now where if you are working for someone, how can you not be stressed? Your wage is limited. And not to say you shouldn't work for somebody. Listen, if that's what you want out of life, then that's beautiful. But you have to make sure that you're working for somebody who cares about you and you're not just a number. As I'm growing, I do realize that the bigger my team gets, the harder it is to control the environment. You can't all of the time, but with good leadership and showing people how they can be better people themselves, it'll automatically create a better environment. So I really want this podcast to help with work environment. A little bit about me and my background. I feel like I got into this in the first recording that I did, and I got maybe too into it. I don't really like talking about myself that much, especially my past. I feel like it shouldn't define who I am, but that is, and we'll talk about this, probably a story that I'm just telling myself. It is important. It's important for people who may be in the same situation to know that if you are in that situation, there's a way out. And not only is there a way out, but you can live a beautiful life. So I'm going to talk about it. I was born in Paterson, New Jersey. My mother and father were addicts. When I was about 2 or 3, they decided to let my grandparents take care of me on my mom's side. So I moved to a beautiful town, Fair Lawn, New Jersey, and my grandparents took care of me from there. And it was not easy. Of course, as a little girl, you're wondering like where the heck are my parents? And being raised with grandparents who are kind of old school, don't believe in therapy, just kind of like suck it up and, move on. And sometimes that's okay. Most of the time, maybe not. So I do encourage people to seek therapy if this is, I probably would encourage everyone to seek therapy, but especially if you've gone through some things and you've never sought help. Sometimes and the same thing goes with a coach. Sometimes you just don't know what you don't know. And how are you even supposed to know what to ask if you don't know it's a thing? So I feel like that once I sought out therapy, I realized like how cool that is to like have somebody teach you how to cope and teach you how to be better when you're in therapy and you're going through your healing journey. It's the same thing where they're helping you and you're going on this entrepreneurship journey and you're going to you're going to move. You're going to keep going up and up and up, and not to say that it's only up. Of course, we all know life is a roller coaster. So, if you are someone who struggled or struggles, I always suggest seeking out a therapist or coach. Anyway, going back to my childhood, I was raised in Fair Lawn with my grandparents, and they were a lot better with me than they were with their own kids, but it wasn't great. So when I got older, my mom did come back into my life for maybe like 2, 3 years, and she was sober for those years. She moved in with me and my grandparents and my uncle, and unfortunately, she did relapse after those couple years when she ran away from home, from the house, and a couple days later my father passed away. So, being in a household that doesn't believe in therapy and being in that situation was really difficult. I do have to say I'm so grateful for the therapists and the counselors in the school system where I was at because they really helped me through those times. But it was difficult as a young child going through those emotions and not really knowing how to navigate. So again, I'm still very, very grateful for those counselors and getting me through those moments. I went on without my parents for a few more years, and when I was 16, my mom finally got her shit together. She got her own place. My grandparents at that point, I was an interesting teenager. I wasn't the best. Wasn't the worst. Definitely wasn't the worst, but I wasn't the best. And they were over me. I moved in with my mom and into Garfield, New Jersey, and we lived in a 1 bedroom, me and her. She had the bedroom and I had the living room, which was an interesting living situation, but I was just happy to be with my mom, to be honest. So it was definitely a learning curve living with my mom as my mom. I always felt like she was my friend, more or less. So her trying to be my mom, or being my mom, I should say, was definitely a hard to get over. I really wanted to just be like, okay, bye, I'm going out. Okay, I'm doing this. Okay, oh, hey, girl, what's up? And, there was like a moment where she was like, Cameo, I'm your mom. I'm not just your friend, but if we're going to live like this and have this lifestyle, you have to allow me to be your mom. So that was a really big shift. And unfortunately, after that, she allowed a boyfriend to move in. and he didn't really like me that much. And when I got pregnant when I was 17, he made me feel extremely uncomfortable, and I didn't feel wanted in the house anymore. So I didn't really feel wanted anywhere. I wound up in a shelter for a few months, several sources, amazing, amazing place. I will forever be grateful to them for just holding space for women who are pregnant and going through a time. And they always said, too, we are the in between. We are the in between stage where, you feel like you're in this space in life. And on the other side, there's this really great other space where you don't feel so lost. You don't, you mature, you have your kid, you learn to be a mom and you move on and you move up. But in between, sometimes people aren't so lucky. And especially if you're a young mom or a mom who struggles, single mom, it could be difficult. So they they always said they're that in between stage just to give you that step up. And that's really what they did for me. They took me in, they loved me, they helped me, they helped me become a mother, and I learned how to cook, kind of. I learned how to take care of myself, and it really prepped me for taking care of another little human. Everything happens for a reason. When you switch your thought process to life doesn't happen to me, life happens for me, it's huge. In that moment, you realize that even through pain and suffering, and the other end is happiness and gratefulness and joy. If you realize this and you learn how to utilize pain, bring it into your future and your present, and create something beautiful with that, learn from it. There's never loss, there's never losing, failure. I don't use those words, and neither should you. It's all lessons. And when we're going through something really painful, if I never went through losing my father, losing my mother, and, with my father, I didn't really know him that much, except for the last couple years of his life, because my mom came back into my life and introduced me to him. But I really only lost him once, maybe twice. My mother, I lost over and over and over again because she would come back and then relapse or, go to jail or so going through that pain and that hardship was really hard at the time. Now I get to talk about it and I get to tell people, yeah, that happened. It happens to me, to maybe you who's listening, but it doesn't define us. It teaches us. It teaches us shit. If I could go through that, I could go through a lot of other things. I can go through anything. I use that as fuel, and you should too. When I was younger, I used to ask a lot why. I used to ask God. I used to ask myself. I used to ask anybody why? Why me? Why did this happen? Why me? Why? I was still young when I decided this. I said, I need to stop. I need to stop asking myself why because it doesn't matter why. I can't control why. I can't control the past or what's happened. And the only thing that I control is me and moving forward. So, utilizing that pain and those lessons to move forward with my life and put them into something that makes something good and great, that's what life is about. And that's what we're here to do. But all that to say, life is beautiful. And we have to life is like a box of chocolates. We have to take that pain and utilize it to fuel our future. And how do you do that? How do you do that? You learn, you have to feel it, you have to allow yourself to go through the process. And this is why I say a therapist is really good because you can utilize them to help you navigate through these things and figure out why they're happening, what can you do next and how do you relearn and rewire your brain so that doesn't happen again. I recently went to a Tony Robbins event which always, I feel like I say it every time I go, which I've only gone to 2, but changes my life. Changed my life the first time, changed my life the second time. Every single time I go, there's always something that lots of things that I learn, and I just feel different afterwards. His energy is unmatched, first of all. His energy is wild. But you watch him and you listen to this man, and he just makes you feel invincible, and he tells you, which we'll talk about this a lot, you are in charge of your future. It doesn't matter where you came from, who you are, you have to make shit happen for you. And because if you don't, who's going to? No one. When I first went to Tony Robbins, my limiting belief was I was scared of money. Sounds crazy. I was legit scared to make too much money. Why? Because what would that make me? Who would that make me? Would I become evil? What would I do with the money? Would I use it only for myself? Which, no, I don't do that now. Why would I do that if I make more money? You know, I felt like people would judge me. I felt like my team would would judge me and look at me different. And maybe some of them do, but that's on them, not me. Not my business. And I just was so scared that it would change me. So I dug deep. I went to Tony Robbins and I dug deep and I found the root of this limiting belief and I squashed it. I destroyed it. No longer. Now, 2 years later, I come back to Tony Robbins and what is my limiting belief? Pretty much the same thing. Even though I worked on that, I have to continue to work on that. It is not something that I could just make a decision and that's it for the rest of my life. It's something we have to continue to work on and train our brains, train our thoughts into really believing this until hopefully you don't have to really think about it anymore. But until then, it's a process. So I'm really I'm really happy that I get to redo this podcast because the energy that I wanted to bring to the podcast was fun and exciting and loving. And I feel like you will one day see this podcast and know what I'm talking about. It was just wasn't that. It wasn't that at all. And maybe it's because, I when I start talking about my past, I get into this state where it's not like a great state. And in order for me to be the best version of me for you guys, I have to be in a good state. I have to be in a positive state and a happy state. And thinking of those memories just doesn't do that for me. So I that's why I wanted to re-record today and bring you a different energy. That is a little bit about my past and going forward. There's things that'll be brought up here and there that I talk about, but that's like the gist of my upbringing. And it just there was a lot. Fast forward, my mom had 19 years of sobriety, completely turned her life around, became a registered nurse, and it really was truly inspiring. And when people say, like, she had like 7 felonies, jumped through hoops to get this nursing license, and just didn't take no for an answer. She did whatever the fuck she had to do to get this license because it meant everything to her. And in a little bit, we'll talk about things that help you become successful, but she just made it happen. And I was so proud of her because she didn't allow her past to define her. And watching her go from, not knowing where she's going to sleep or eat or whatever to this person who now had so much to live for and so much accomplishments. And it was incredible. It really was to watch her go through this process. Okay. Marvin, I don't know if you guys could hear him from here, but he's like, "You're doing great," which by the way, he told me in my first podcast. And I was not doing great. Um, you're going to see me do this a lot. I like to be comfortable, and I feel like if I'm not, I can't concentrate. So I'll even do this in a restaurant where I know some of you can't see me, but I take my shoes off and I do crisscross applesauce, and it just makes me feel comfortable. So we're doing this. Thank you, Marvin, for letting me know that I'm doing good. I appreciate you. Where I struggle with in my entrepreneur journey, or struggled with the most, was knowing where to go. Knowing where to go because I had never been there. I was pregnant with my son, and I was working at a place called Medusa's Hair Loft. It was a tough situation because the person that I was working for had a huge loss. Her husband had passed away, and it was awful. She went through, she had 2 kids with him, and she was just going through so much. She asked me to partner with her, and then eventually just was over it. So I wound up taking over the salon and making it over into something more of mine. And then from there, I was only 27, I think. It was so hard to navigate what the fuck I was doing. I mean, I'm 27, didn't take any business courses, didn't take any classes, no mentor, nobody to tell me what the hell I was doing. And I did my best to maybe Google or like Pinterest, what do I do? But it just wasn't doing it. I took over a salon that wasn't doing well, in the red, and all I knew how to do was hair. So that's what I did. I did really, really, really good hair. And I talked and I talked and I talked, and I built a clientele so strong that eventually I was able to not pay myself. And this is where I have to give props to my mom, because when we were living with her, she really just, we made a plan. It was a 3 to 5 year plan. And I told her, give me this time, give me these 3 to 5 years, and I'm going to make shit happen. So she was letting me do my thing. I wasn't paying myself. And I had asked my best friend, Perry, who also was a hairstylist. Her story is really funny. She was going to school to be a lawyer and said, "F this. I'm a creative. I want to do hair, and I love it." So she started doing hair, and she was an assistant at this other salon that she wasn't a huge fan of and wasn't treated very well. So when I asked her, and this was probably the 4th or 5th time I asked her, I took her out to dinner, basically like begging her, please come work for me. She obviously needed to get paid. I didn't know how I was going to do that, but I kind of put up my hands and let go, let God, is like one of my favorite sayings. And that's what I did. I said, you know what? Take the wheel, because I don't know how the heck I'm going to do this, but I need this. I told her, I said, I will match whatever they're paying you, even paying myself. But I was going to pay her. So I did. She agreed. She came on board, and I matched her pay. It was something that opened my eyes to a lot. I made room for something to happen. Asking her to come work, not really knowing where the money was going to come from, but believing in myself that I would make it happen, and then it happening, it gave me a whole new perspective. Once you believe that that could happen like that, oh my gosh, I mean, doors just fly open. She came on board. We're working our asses off. COVID hits, because I took over in 2019. And so a year later, COVID hits. I bust my butt. The landlord was great. He said I only had to pay half the rent until we get back. And then when we get back, I can expand whatever I owe him over a year. Amazing. So when we get back, we were following the rules. We were doing everything we can to make people feel comfortable. I mean, it was hard because you had to be in these masks. Everyone was scared to be around people. And you can't do a hair service without being in somebody's space. So it was very difficult and a lot of places closed down. But for us, respecting people's people's space and wiping everything down, making sure that we're taking everybody's temperature. We did all the things. People started coming in flocks to us. And COVID kind of cleaned house where it was just me and my best friend Perry. And I worked 7 days a week, 12 to 15-hour shifts. Mind you, my son was 1 years old, but we were so busy that I couldn't. And I knew that I had to make up this money. I just did what I had to do to make it work. And thank God I did, because with all of those new people coming in from people who used to go out of town, didn't want to travel to the city, definitely didn't want to travel. Places were closing down. Where are they going to go? And so I took advantage of this time and I did marketing, 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 marketing. Whereas everyone else was kind of had scarcity mindset and was trying to retract, I was trying to do the opposite. And what that did was brand awareness. Without even knowing it, because I didn't know what I was doing. So without knowing what I was doing, I was creating brand awareness in a time where people weren't. So after those 3 weeks of hell and just working my butt off, my friend looked at me and she was like, okay, you have to stop. Like there was just one time where I was just in tears at I think it was like 11:30 or 12 a.m. The hair wasn't turning out the way I wanted to. And I broke down and I was exhausted. So I took a breath and my friend looked at me and she said, you got to slow down. You got to take a day. And so I did. And that's when I learned, I got to take care of myself. The service industry is very hard because you want to please everyone. They're going to be there. They're going to be there when I get back. It's only one day. So I did. And then eventually I took another day. And then I sort of manifested a third employee. I started talking about it. I would love more help. I really want another stylist. And because I was talking about it, somebody who I also went to school with came in and she had been home with her kids for 5 years, wanting to get back into the industry. I was so happy. I was so happy that she came to me and trusted me. I said, we started talking. I was doing her hair. I said, oh my gosh, like, come here. So she did. And she started out as an assistant. We taught her, whatever we knew. And she grew quick. She grew really, really quick. I mean, it was only three of us with an overpour of clientele. So it went really, really good. And something to take from that too is it wasn't what I was doing in the moment. It was what I was doing 3, 4, 6 months prior that got me to where I was in that moment. So taking a step back and learning something from what I just said, you have to look at it not in the present. So sometimes we can kind of say, "Oh, what have I accomplished?" Or, "Oh, I'm so overwhelmed. Nothing's working." And maybe in that moment you do feel like that, but it's so important to take a step back and see where you came from. What were you doing, a year ago? And I mean, if you're not doing better, you're doing something wrong. So that's important to reflect on too, but more than likely, you're doing better. And that's because of something that you did then, not now. So keep that in mind when you're doing something to improve your future. You're not going to see it right away. There's no such thing as overnight success. I know with social media, it's sometimes hard to believe that because, oh, they became an overnight success and they went viral. And first of all, even if they did go viral, I'm sure that they have been working for a long time to get there. So it's not an overnight success. People who you see now, just because you see them now doesn't mean that they weren't working on it for years. You have to give yourself grace. And actually, we're going to go over that now. So what I have is clarity is power, and the science of achievement is focus, massive action, and grace. The power of achievement is focus, massive action, and grace. Let's go over those things. Focus, where focus goes, energy flows, period. If you're focusing on something, if that is what you're manifesting, then that's where your energy goes. And that's where manifestation happens. Because let's say you have like, what's a goal? A salon, let's say. You have a salon here and you have a cafe here. If I don't know which one I want, let's say, but I start focusing on the salon, then my energy is going to go to the salon. The cafe is going to it's just going to fall off if I don't focus on it. So wherever you're focusing on is where your energy is going to go. And then massive action. So now you're focused on something, your energy is flowing to it. Okay, it's going to stay there stagnant if you don't take action, right? So you can't just take any action. It has to be massive action. What does that look like? I want to open a salon. I'm focusing on that. I'm doing all the research. I'm finding an accountant. I'm finding out state board stuff. I'm finding out how I can hire. I'm finding out what it takes. Okay, but if I keep just doing that, it's not getting me anywhere. I have to take massive action. Go look for a place. Go to state board. Where am I getting the money? Get that money. I have to do these things. I have to take massive action in order to get to that destination. Now, between here and there, you're going to need to give yourself a lot of grace. A lot of grace, because there's going to be slips, there's going to be falls, there's going to be lessons, not failures, but lessons. And it's going to feel like failure, but it's not. I promise it's not. When something doesn't work, you change what you're doing, you change your approach, and you keep fucking going. Because if you don't, then you will fail. But if you keep going and you change what you're doing and you keep going, change what if it's not working, you change it. You figure it out another way. And eventually taking those massive actions and giving yourself grace getting there. Because if you don't, you're going to become overwhelmed. You're going to slip, you're going to fall, and then you're going to fall into the failure. Give yourself grace and know that you're capable. And it's okay. It's okay to mess up sometimes. It's okay to learn a big lesson sometimes. And it happens. If you just got to pick yourself up, give yourself that grace, keep going. That's how you get success. That's how you become successful. With that, that's all I want for everybody. That's the whole point of this podcast. And what you can look forward to is that I'm going to take you on so many journeys of mine, of the people I invite here. They're going to talk about how they got through their lessons and their moments and how they got to where they are. And my hope for that, for this podcast and this space, is for you, my listeners, to take everything that you hear and you learn here, to take it with you in life and create your own success. So I hope I did better. I'm going to go look at this after and determine if it's better. I think it is. I think I brought better energy and good vibes today with my new hair. Yes. So thank you guys. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. I cannot wait. Seriously, I have wanted to do this podcast for so long. I cannot wait to share more and more and more with you guys and just spend time with you. So thank you for showing up. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Please give this a follow if you know somebody who can benefit from this podcast or future podcasts here. Share this with somebody that you love. Again, somebody that you think you can benefit from it, and show some love. See you later. Thanks, guys. Thanks for being here with me today. It's always appreciated if you would like, share, or drop a comment about what you think. And of course, remember to do what the fuck you want because you deserve it. See you next time. As always, sending love and positive vibes.